Okay, so this is comments on comments that we're doing. Um, so this is an extra one we're doing here, and we're doing it before the live stream, which is going to
Yeah.
be this Saturday, the 19th of October. And it's going to be, I know it's going to be in the UK. That's 5 p.m. It's going to be 5 p.m. in the afternoon. I think we're on the East Coast of America, that's going to be 12 p.m. And on the West Coast of America, it's going to be 9 a.m. And in Singapore, it's going to be midnight. So I hope our friends in Singapore join us. If you're in Australia, it's going to be, I don't know, sometime in the morning. You can work it out from that, from all that.
Respect the Singaporeans.
Yeah. But we really would like, obviously it's going to be recorded, so we'll put it out anyway. But we'd love people to come and ask questions or criticize us or challenge us or throw virtual tomatoes at us. Whatever you want to do, we just love people to be there. And I loved what Steve and James did with eavesdropping. I was there on my computer typing away, saying, "What about this and what about that?" So I get it. It's just great that we can all be involved and build community. That would be my dream, is that we can build community of love. Yeah.
Mm.
So over to
Well,
you, James, for
well
this
said.
comments on comments.
This was Matthew's idea, and I got to tell you, from the very start, I loved it. And when he told me you can pick the comments, he doesn't know the ones I picked. So, and by the way, please don't say why didn't mine get chosen. We might do this more often. This is just for the first few videos that we've shown, and I could have done 3 times this amount. So I start with Chris Pollard, who wrote, Matt, stop teasing us with that guitar lingering in the background. You can see it right there.
No, to be fair, James did warn me about this because I had to tune it.
I
So I
appreciate
hate to ruin the magic of showbiz.
you are so honest.
I
You could have
can't
never
lie.
been a leader. You never could
But
have been a leader. Uh, Stop teasing us with that guitar lingering in the background. When are we going to get a song and see you flex? I don't believe for one moment that it's just a prop. Play for us a little bit,
well,
Matthew.
first I just want to say, Chris. I knew Chris in Birmingham. Chris
Yeah.
an amazing guitarist, and he used to play with him and Warner Baker. Used to sometimes do stuff together. If you
Ah.
remember Warner Baker, and he's a very talented musician. I'm not. I think he's a professional musician, and I am the opposite. I am a very poor musician
Well,
who's
prove that to us.
okay. Come on, I'll prove it to you. So I'll just do a bit of strumming. That is my appalling guitar playing. So, Chris, I'm never going to match you, but I have it there as a little bit of a trophy.
I had a bit of a difficult time hearing the plucking, but I think it was enough to get the idea that you were being honest about your ability. If we can get you to play on Zoom, we would love to hear you. So just consider this an invitation.
And we missed a bit of that. You're inviting Chris Pollard to come and play.
Yes,
Oh
I
yeah,
think
Chris, we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you come. We might need to change the settings. I think you need to put the settings on Zoom to
right.
music so you can pick it up properly.
That's what we'll do.
Or if Chris, if you've got a video of you playing, we could play that. I'm sure you've got
Per-
some video.
Perfect.
Yeah.
From Aldo B. Martin,
Hello, Aldo.
the conversation continues. That was his comment. And it was our first program, and I loved it. 3 words, but it says so much. In a lot of ways, Aldo and others, I'm sure, began the conversation, but woke up a lot of us. And to see the conversation continues, I just felt like that was very powerful and very positive. Any thoughts on that one?
I mean, obviously the Reclamation podcast has so much in it. He covered the Sukondon Diary. He covered like the Henry Crete letter. He covered the London Council minutes that I was very excited about. He covered the discipling dilemma. He talked to Jerry
Yeah,
Jones. He talked to some
yeah.
of the writers. He talked to people both in the ICC, the ICOC, pre 2003, post 2003. He talked to psychologists, cult experts. So yeah, it was an incredible conversation. He had you and Steve both on it. Uh, so yeah, I'm really honored that Aldo is encouraging us to keep the conversation going. That's great.
Love you, Aldo.
Yeah, we do. We love you, Aldo.
Sherry Simpson Cabling. I love her, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I love everyone. So like,
Yeah.
I know Shari as
But
well.
I've never met her personally, which
Neither. Listen, I've never met Aldo, you,
is
Steve.
that's amazing.
This is all through the internet.
So Sherry wrote, if you hold the keys to eternal life, you can extract anything you want from the vulnerable, including loyalty, obedience, exclusivity, time, energy, money, a person's whole life and mind. Powerful comment.
And definitely true. We did that. Yeah.
Itself is such a case for universalism, which, as I've acknowledged, I'm working through myself. I'm studying through it myself. Hey, I think I'm getting closer to it than I allow myself to think, because I went to a doctor for a pretty serious procedure recently, and the doctor said, "Sign right here," and it says, if you die on the table, do you want us to bring you back or not? And I said, not. Really? Yeah. My wife was there saying, bring me back. And I said, yeah, we see it differently. And my wife said, even if you know I won't be able to recover fully back again, bring me back. And I'm like, nah, pull the plug. You don't say that unless you've dealt with some of that craziness.
Mm.
So great comment, Sherry. James Granberry. By the way, best man at my wedding.
I've only got to know James through literally commenting, us commenting on each other's posts and talking to each other. But I feel like I know James through like all that stuff about atheism and God and the Bible. It's like we've had some great chats.
I'm not going to embarrass the brother that was having a open conversation, public conversation with him on Facebook in the last 3 days, but a Christian in Boston that's been in for 40 years and was talking about things like all the immigrants are coming into our country and ruining it, and one thing after the other. And Granberry was going back with love, and we have to love people and we have to have compassion. And he was coming back with more and more. And it struck me, if you had to pick which one's the Christian and which one is the atheist, based on the comments, you would miss it every time. But he is a man of love through and through, and respect him so much. James Granberry wrote, wow, powerful testimony about the Cretes. First episode, remember?
I do.
Shame on this movement for distorting history to fit its agenda. I'm just going to say this. Yeah, I know you were a lot closer to Henry than I ever was, but I loved being able to honor that couple for what they did and for how they were treated and deserved so much better. Thoughts?
I mean, I only knew Henry briefly at that period. My wife was in Nigeria with Henry and Marilyn and loves Henry and Marilyn and respects them and saw how they lived out in Nigeria. I
Right?
for me, yeah, I wish it's not, I wish at the time we could have all got together and talked when Henry put that thing out. We could have had some, just carried on having open forums and brought out the letter and talked about it and shared about it and but it's not too late. Like I still hope that Henry and Marilyn, can be part of the conversation going forward and that because we don't need the ICOC to have friendships. Like,
There.
there's nothing stopping us being friends with each other. There's nothing stopping us talking about God, the Bible, Jesus, heaven, hell with each other. Like, there is nothing stopping us. We don't need especially with the internet, we don't need a
Mm-hmm.
big institution. We
Well
just need,
said.
we just need to love each other. So I,
Henry,
I really respect Henry and Marilyn. Yeah.
Henry, open invitation. Come join us. If you've heard us, listen to one or two of the episodes. I think when you see the dynamic that we use and where we're coming from, I think it would be a safe place for you to share your thoughts, and people would love to hear from you. Our audience would love to hear from you. So that's an open invitation.
I know. I just have to. Me and Henry had, the last time he came on Facebook and we had some conflicts over beliefs, but that's okay. I think that's okay. We're allowed to believe different things. It's not a big deal for me.
You're a hero. You're a hero to me, and you always were. And when I think of some of the leaders in that movement now that are starting to cash in on retirement funds, and I think of us, Henry, I got 3 months severance with no retirement. You got 1 month severance. To have been treated that way was horrible. And I would love to do what I could to reconcile that. I have not ever discussed this. I'm open to starting a GoFundMe just to try to, at least for a one time, people around the world could thank you for what you did to help open eyes. And I'm just sorry that you were not treated as the hero that you are to so many. Thanks. I don't know Thomas Richardson. I don't know Macon Ross, but Thomas included Macon on this comment and said, I find much resonance here with our recent conversation. Matthew and James, please know that the conversation Macon and I had was brought about by the love you continue to show all through this work. Please know that in our conversation, love and healing flowed. That warms my heart to read those words. And though I don't know them, the fact that they view what we're doing, and I know not everyone does, Matthew, but the fact that he views what we're doing is filled with love, and that in our conversation, love and healing takes place, that encouraged me incredibly. So I thank you. I thank you so much for those comments.
I again with again I've had some great chats with Thomas, and we probably agree on quite a lot of stuff. And some chats with Mac on, we probably disagree on some stuff, but it's always been very friendly and respectful. And yeah, that really, I saw that comment as well, and I really encouraged me. Yeah.
Yeah. Amy Middlebrooks, may God have mercy. That's it. May God have mercy. When you think about the things that we have talked about, may God have mercy. I want to tell you that Amy is a hero of mine. Her courage, her resolve had me asking myself, why am I not speaking up? So, Amy, you were among the top motivations for me to be doing what I'm doing right this minute. And I want to thank you for that.
I love that. I love Amy, and I think of her and Nave and Justine and Shell, who really lead the charge in putting stuff out there and speaking out. And I really appreciate Amy and all her encouragement and the insight she has. Um, May God have mercy. For me, that's, I have a different theological. I think God is a partner in all of this. I don't look at it as God judging us and being above us. I look at it as we all need to have mercy on each other. We need to have mercy on God. God needs to have mercy on us. We need to have mercy on each other. It's a virtuous circle of mercy that is required, which ends up being love. But I totally hear the sentiment.
Yeah, I like that. I hope I get this pronunciation okay. Roxanne Shaw Reitman, I would think. She wrote, we used to always talk about the abuse in the Catholic Church. I was abused by a priest, and nothing happened except he was moved to another parish. The Catholic Church pays my therapy today, and that's it. Our church is just as bad. To which I say, just as bad? We can't get our church to pay for anybody's therapy. I mean, I think they're ahead of us. The Catholic Church said we maligned from day one. I called it a pedophile religion when I was in the church. They're paying for her therapy. I'm asking here again right now. Churches, contact me. We can keep it a secret which church you are. Donate X amount of money for therapy for the people who've been hurt so bad. I'll mention the church or not mention the church. I don't care how much it is. Zacchaeus said, if we abused one person in the church, I'll pay for 4 therapies. What if we go for that? But it's time to step up and at least do what the Catholic Church has done.
I
You
think
going to add something?
I think you. I haven't really got much to add to that, James. I think that's it's pretty clear. If people can't hear it, they choose not to hear it.
That's what I think.
Mm.
Amy Vaughn. Learning lesson for me on this one. As it pertains to the happy endings, the thing that I instantly thought was happy endings for who? Certainly not for those who are being manipulated and abused.
No, 100. Yeah,
This
100%.
hand is a hand of a misogynist that learns regularly things that I overlook, oversee. I've used that term happy endings for a lifetime, and it's focused only on one of the 2 people. And the fact that she brought that up as we were talking about allegations of Kip, that was a learning point for me. And I still remember it very clearly. And Amy, I thank you for that.
Yeah,
Reaction?
I know. I agree, and I think when we were talking generally, there was a Necker. Necker also. I don't know if you've got her down there, but Necker also brought up some stuff about when we were talking about people having sex rather than it being abuse.
Oh,
Kind of like, and I apologize for, we should have been clearer,
mm,
in no, that was abuse. That wasn't like, consensual sex between adults. That was an abuse of power a lot of the time. And also, yeah, just casually talking about visiting prostitutes. I talked about going to a prostitute, and I mean, it's complicated ethics, that, but I recognize that that was me in a position of power using money to buy something that a lot of people would regard as sacred. Um, and so I don't know what I believe about that ultimately, but about whether prostitution is wrong or, but I recognize that it's not something to be treated casually with the discussion about it. And I apologize if I didn't, treat it with enough sensitivity. Mm.
thank you. Wonderful. Judy Bolton. I told you in a private conversation the other day, I think I love this Judy Bolton. I love what she's writing. And you went, James, I know her. And you're right. She really is just lovely. Judy Bolton wrote, I am left with a sense of relief as I exhale for the first time in years that those of us who left were not crazy. That's such a big one for me, Matthew. We've had a number of comments from people They're still talking about dealing with nightmares, post traumatic stress. And when I see that Judy has a sense of relief, the term I exhaled for the first time in years, I feel that relief, that peace, and that those of us who left were not crazy. Judy, I thank you so much for making that comment. And I'm sure that one touched many other hearts besides mine.
So yeah, I knew Judy in London, and she's amazing, and I really appreciate all her comments. And yeah, if we're able to validate, there was a huge amount of gaslighting. Huge,
Yes.
like the whole thing was one big gaslight. So it's like you're not living up to this standard, you're rubbish. But then the leaders themselves were not living up to this standard. In fact, they were living up to a worse standard, a lot of the top leaders. So there was a huge whether it was purposeful or just the nature of kind of religious indoctrination and hypocrisy. But either way, that's how it turned out that a lot of the people on the bottom of the pyramid were essentially being gaslit into thinking they were failures. Uh,
Yes.
and so it's great to know, yeah, you weren't crazy. It was a corrupt, manipulative, and dishonest institution, and it was stacked against you from the start. It was never, it was never going to lead. It was never going to lead to a closer walk with the spirit.
Mm. Him, Mantooth Lot.
Oh, you just broke up there. Just say that again, James.
Kim, Mantooth Lot. I still have nightmares 17 years after leaving, after being there for 20 years. Another one of the comments that tells me someone leaves this organization, and it's not like I had a rough 3 days. It just took me a while to get my bearing and to realize it's not like that. She still has nightmares 17 years after leaving. Kim, I appreciate a lot of the comments that you have written. If I'm not mistaken, she's from North Carolina too, and knew a lot that I did way back when in North Carolina. Kim, our hopes and our goals are to, through these programs, is to help those nightmares to stop for you and for others. It's one of the reasons we're doing this.
I mean, I really appreciate Kim's comments. She makes some great comments on there, and I definitely, I definitely have a lot of dreams still about the ICOC. I'm sometimes I'm back in a meeting and I'm getting into an argument with a leader, or I'm back there. I'm not sure what I'm doing back there. It definitely comes up. I would say, you know, like probably less than I used to, but I would say I have a dream about the ICOC once every couple of months, you know.
Which is interesting because some of the leaders that I know that are still in tell me they still have nightmares about you, Matthew. No, I'm kidding you. I'm kidding you on that. But yes, Kim, thank you for your honesty, for your vulnerability with that, and know that you're not alone. We're all working through this together. Sherry Odesanya,
Yeah.
she wrote, "Conversation is healing and long overdue." Now get ready for the part of her comment that I really did love. "Please make these 1 hour long." You got to love that one.
I think Ricky Franco said something similar as well.
Ricky Franco wrote,
Yeah.
"These have to be longer
Yeah,
somehow."
which is really
But
kind.
then,
Yeah.
but then my hero, Amy Middlebrooks writes, thanks for making these only 30 minutes. But hey, those comments lead to a great question that we can ask right now for your response. What is the ideal time? You know, it's hard for us to limit to 30, to be honest. It's a major discipline for us, but we don't want to assume that 1 hour you have. That other thing, we know you're busy. We don't want to think that we're the most important thing on the calendar for the day. So that's our issue that we're working through. Give us more feedback, even on that, because we would appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I knew Sherry and her husband and large parts of her husband's family as well. There was quite a few Odesanyas in the London church and in the Birmingham church, and just always Sherry's always really encouraging. It's just great. Again, great to be able to keep the friendships going from all those years ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
Marty Woot, James, you are so right to get your children. Let's pause on this one for a
You
minute.
just you broke up there. Marty Wood and James, you were so right to get your children.
Out of there.
Mm.
I shared that when I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out,
Mm.
one of the leaders met with me and said, the word is you might be leaving the whole church. Yep. Well, I've got one last plea. How can you do that to your daughters? They're preteens. How could you be so selfish to leave the church when you have two daughters that are in the world and facing all of that instead of putting them in a teen program? And it was so amazing that when that leader said that to me, it really hit me. I'm going to use my English term here. I was gobsmacked by that being one of the main reasons I did not want my kids in a youth ministry. I just didn't. And I knew that was the best decision I could make. For Marty to mention that to me, I felt like was brave, because this is a tricky one. Because there are parents who are still in the church for only one reason, because their kids are in the church. They don't want, they've told me this. Or they have children that will be coming to that age. And of course, we're thinking, why would you want to give up the one chance for them to go to heaven? The fact is, if I were to name the abuses in teen ministries alone, forget the adults for a minute, it's horrible. I had an ex-member call me last night about her sister's teenager that was in a church where she hears now there was on with the teens. They're calling me to find out what was his name, what was it like.
So I missed that there was something happened with the teens. What there was abuse with the teens,
Yes,
right?
with teen leaders.
Teen leaders and teams. Okay.
And I'm telling you, it's tricky to talk about it,
Mm.
because as soon as Marty says you are so right to get your children out, somebody left their kids in or stayed in for their kids who were abused or neglected or have lost their faith or have turned so negative they don't even want to talk about church. And they thought they were doing right. They thought they were doing the righteous thing. So it's a hard comment to make. I'm not looking to stir up guilt unnecessarily. But I want to tell Marty Wooten, I really appreciated your comment to me.
So me and Marty have had a lot of battles on, on posts and comments and debates. But what I really appreciate about Marty is he's put himself out there. So he's willing, he's engaged with ex-members. Um, he's made himself vulnerable in that way. And in fact, after I think one of our first or second episodes, we had a kind of chat on the phone, which was really nice. And I know it's challenging to, but like both Nadine and Marty recently, they're the two kind of big leaders that have put themselves out there where they're opening themselves to criticism. They're opening themselves to ex-members like myself going, well, what about what you did and this and that? And yet they've not disappeared. They've stayed the course. And
Good point.
I respect that unbelievably. Like, we don't have to agree. Like, it's okay. We can even be a little bit mean to each other sometimes. It's not, there's no power. It's not like anyone's going to disfellowship anyone else. It's not like anyone's claiming authority. We're just human beings trying to work out this shared history we've got and hopefully a shared future that we've got. It's okay to have a little bit of argy-bargy. We try and make it as kind and gentle and loving as possible, but it's not always going to be that way, and that's okay. That for me, the most important thing is let's not walk away from each other. Let's just keep in there. Let's just keep talking and just be committed to each other. That's all.
Thank you. Got a few more. Tammy Wilder, who, by the way, I just became friends with this week. We finally connected on Facebook. I think she was 3 years old when I was preaching in London. Of course, I was friends with her parents. But she's so mature and wise and loving. Oh, and her great sense of humor. I see her humor all the time, and I just absolutely love it. Tammy wrote, I so appreciate how you both speak with such truth, honesty, grace, respect, and love. Thank you, fellas. Tammy, I just love the fact that we have reconnected. Again, I see you in church as a 3 year old, and now you're a beautiful woman that you have these remarkable ideas that you're sharing regularly and encouraging people. The other day she wrote, don't let anybody tell you you're ugly. You are ugly, but don't let anybody tell you that.
I see her posts. She has got very funny posts. I do like them a
Yeah.
lot, and I was really encouraged when she posted that. And obviously, the Wilder family were very important in London,
Yes.
and their parents, incredible singers and songwriters.
Mm.
Very, very talented, amazing people.
Always and forever.
Yeah.
Tammy Nelson. This is on rebaptisms. I remember I got baptized a second time in Columbia, South Carolina, because I was moving to New York City and I knew everyone that moved there was having to get rebaptized. So, rebel that I decided to do it before I moved so they couldn't hit me with that when I got there. They still did. For about 6 months, they would constantly bring it up. They finally stopped. Thank you for sharing that, Tammy. A point to notice. Columbia was one of the top discipleship churches in the nation, in the world. I'm giving that. Randy McKean did a phenomenal job at that church. There's no doubt. The fact that people that were going from Columbia to New York had to get rebaptized by the New York church is a sham and a shame. And the fact that it happened with such regularity that people in South Carolina heard about it and realized that was part of the cost to count on moving to New York for more training is to be rebaptized. That to me sums up what I was talking about of how we used baptism as a proud tool to blow our own trumpets for our growth and to help transfer loyalty from one church to a new one, from one leader to a new one. Shame on us for that. By the way, this really did hurt when people started falling away. I didn't share this publicly, but if you've got somebody that was baptized 5 times in your church, and we did have them, and we used them as a fresh stat every time, and then they left the church, you had 5 people leave that day. So when people started leaving, it really did come back to haunt. Comment?
I mean, the rebaptism thing is it does see. But after I posted it, and went to bed, I started thinking, oh my gosh, it was. I think the way Kip used it as a power tool, um, to produce loyalty, I think that's the way the whole of the ICOC used it because it was like, we had the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Only our baptism, and through our series of studies could you be saved. Therefore, your loyalty and commitment were always going to be to the ICOC, the person who met you, people who studied the Bible with you, the preacher you preached. And, it was that way. And that was a tool of control. It was a way of, you talked about the curse of the Church of Christ. It was a prison, and the bars were the fear you can't have a relationship with God outside of this church. You can't get to heaven outside of this church. And those bars were erected during the studies, and baptism was the final turning of the key and throwing the key away. It was your final kind of like the prison bars closed behind you and the lock turned. That was baptism. That the point that should be setting us free was actually the point of imprisonment.
Matthew, you asked me, I don't know if it was on the air or just in private conversation. Are you saying leaders actually intentionally instill doubt in people? Then I get a comment that answers your question from Nancy Allen Bright. During a reconstruction, the whole church was convinced to doubt their baptisms. It was awful. What in the world were we thinking? It wasn't just 1 or 2. Let's let them all go home tonight, knowing that if they die tonight, they're going to hell. Because we as leaders, we're not yet convinced that you're repentant enough to stay in our church. Think about that. As of tonight, there are no members in this church. You're all lost and going to hell. Convince us that we're wrong, and we'll let you back in. Hello, Colt. Let me close out with some positives. Matthew, I'd like to ask you that we did talk about ahead of time so you don't have to confess it, to play the first minute of a video that struck me later as I watched it when you're talking about the most horrible of advice that I was ever given by anybody in the church.
Shall I go for it? You ready?
Please. Yeah.
So, James, so just talking about what you just talked about, which was last principles. I mean, I have to say, when you were talking, especially about the advice you got given and the stuff around Tanya, and it makes me a little bit emotional. Um, the way she was treated. You got people praying. I mean, you couldn't make that. I don't think. I don't. Could you make? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's almost they were
You
praying for
can't
Tanya.
make it up.
They were praying for Tanya to be
To be
adulterous. I mean,
adultery.
you just you.
Thank you. The part of that video that I want to focus on is when you started out and said, when I think about what you and Tanya went through regarding that advice, and then you paused and you said, I get a little bit emotional. I'm feeling a little bit emotional. And you can see it in your face and you can hear it in your voice. And I realized watching that after the program That's the difference between you and the leaders that I knew and still know in the ICOC. They don't get emotional when they hear that story. They get defensive. And as a victim, that doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. And for the first time, and I've not shared this, I want to share what the reactions were from leaders who I have told that story to years ago. I won't give their names. Here's one. Are you sure you remember the story right? What? How can you ask that? When I just said it was a brother that called from London who had stayed up all night praying, and the prayer from the leaders was that Tanya would commit adultery so that James could be back in the ministry. Did I remember that right? From another leader. I'm sure he was not serious with that advice. Oh, really? One leader who is my friend said, what if they were just brainstorming, just on a Saturday night, talking among themselves, saying, how could we possibly get James back in the ministry? And somebody mentioned that as an idea, but not as a serious idea. What? No emotion. How about when I was told, it's not like you never made a mistake in the ministry? And from the perpetrator of the advice. If that is what really happened, that is horrible. Hearing you in one sentence, seeing you get emotional as you think about that kind of abuse, and then remembering how every person, even leaders in the church, have responded to me telling that story, tells me everything I need to know about you as a friend, and it tells me everything I need to know about that leadership group, that church, that cult. And I want to close out with this, Matthew. This is a private note that I wrote to you. No thoughts of putting it in here, but I want to close with this one. A note I wrote to you maybe a week ago. Matthew, I'm so proud of this project that we share. As I looked through the comments, I was hit hard with proud emotions. Thank you for who you are. You have the heart and spirit, and I'll get emotional. You have the heart and spirit to minister to others far better than any high-ranking leader our church ever had. I love you. And that's from the heart.
Thanks, James. I love you too, man. And
that's our comments on the comments. Please keep making them because I want to do this again.
Thanks, James.